Namaskar, hello and welcome to Sansad TV. I am Namrata Singh and you're watching Perspective. In a historic leap, India has returned to human spaceflight after 40 years. The Axiom 4 mission successfully launched today from NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida, carrying Group Captain Shubhanshu Shukla to the International Space Station, making him only the second Indian in space after Rakesh Sharma in 1984. Riding a SpaceX Crew Dragon atop a Falcon 9 rocket, the US-led commercial mission also includes astronauts from Poland and Hungary, marking a proud milestone for all three nations. For India, AX4 is more than a mission. It signals the country's growing stature among spacefaring nations. As ISRO prepares for its own Gaganyaan human spaceflight, a future Bharatiya Antariksh Station and a crewed lunar mission by 2040, AX4 serves as a critical stepping stone. Shukla, as a mission pilot, plays a key role, gathering insights that will directly inform India's future missions. Led by veteran NASA astronaut Peggy Whitson, the four-member crew will spend 14 days aboard the ISS conducting nearly 60 scientific experiments. So how significant is this moment in India's broader space ambitions, and what can we learn from AX to shape the path ahead for Gaganyaan? To discuss this and much more, I'm joined by a very eminent panel of guests. I'm pleased to welcome two distinguished guests joining us virtually. I'm delighted to welcome Dr. Amitabh Ghosh, space scientist and a key contributor to NASA's Mars missions. Also joining us is Dr. G. Raju, Professor, Department of Aerospace, Jain University. He's also a former project director of ISRO. Thank you both for being here and welcome to Sansad TV. Let me begin the discussion with you, Dr. Ghosh. The successful launch of the AX4 mission carrying Group Captain Shubhanshu Shukla marks India's return to human spaceflight after 4 decades, a proud and historic moment for the country. And you have been part of some of the NASA's iconic groundbreaking missions. So what are your first thoughts on this milestone? How significant do you think is this moment for India?
Okay, so it's very significant in multiple levels. So when Rakesh Sharma went to space 40 years ago, India did not have a human spaceflight program in the offing. So here you have a human spaceflight program. So whatever happens now is going to inform Gaganyaan's design, Gaganyaan's processes. So there's a lot of feedback there. So it is like you're riding a friend's car, but next year you're going to buy your own car. So it's very important. This experience is very important. On a global scale, there is many other things going on in the background. The cost of human spaceflight has gone down. Human spaceflight will become commonplace. NASA and China and other countries are thinking of the moon as the next platform. So instead of the International Space Station, astronauts will go to the moon. So the timing is very, very interesting. So India will have the human space capability when the capability is very important. The third thing is because of the use of reusable rockets, like which Falcon 9, what you saw today, Falcon 9 is a reusable rocket. So the cost of space flight has decreased by 95%, which means it's become very cheap. So this is also a place where space flight will become cheap, and tourism, space tourism might have a chance. So in multiple ways, this timing of India's entry into the human spaceflight club, a very select club, out of 200 countries, just 4 have right, this capability. I think this timing is very opportune.
Absolutely. So, Dr. Raju, this moment is far more than just a scientific milestone. It's a symbol of India's rise as a spacefaring nation powered by decades of dedication and aspirations of 1.4 billion people. How significant is this mission in larger context of India's space journey, and how do you personally see and feel about this historic mission?
It's a huge step. So just imagine, I came to the US in '93. India did not have a planetary science program. 10 years later was Chandrayaan 1. So in this short time, in 20 years, India has landed on the moon. India has gone to Mars. India has had a lunar orbiter. And now India is ready for Gaganyaan. So in this short 20 years, India has gone from virtually no space program to being among the top 4 countries in the world where the space capability, who have space capability. So it's been a huge journey, I think, topped with many discoveries, scientific discoveries. Yes.
Okay, let me bring in Dr. Raju into the discussion. Dr. Raju, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes,
Can you
sir.
hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, so according to you, how significant is this mission in larger context of India's space journey, sir?
Yeah, see, good evening. I think this is a very important. This year, we have completed 50 years. We are celebrating 50 years of the golden jubilee of the first satellite, Aryabhatta, launched in 1975. From there, we have come a long way. From taking help of foreign launch vehicles to our own launch vehicles, our own satellites. Now we can think of our own Bharatiya Earth Station, Earth Station similar to ISS.
Okay.
This has given a big leap in our capability, development, and also being equally stakeholders compared to other countries. We should say we are almost equal to the other countries, other developed people in this space regime. So, but anyway, it is a very important thing to have collaboration, because space technology, space business is very expensive. And so, for example, International Space Station itself is a 5-country collaboration. There are 5 countries together. They are offering under collaboration, other countries can join and continue. But if we are successful in the first step, in what Shubhanshu has gone now, we will learn a lot in not only reaching technologically ahead, but also how to survive, how to develop a habitat center for example, on the moon. Chandrayaan 2 and 3 have shown that there is enough water. Ice is locked as big blocks under the surface of the moon. So we are confident if you can harvest it, water is available. Now, if I want to stay for 6 months, I cannot keep transporting water or food particles from the ground to space because it's very expensive. So this particular mission will give a good feedback. Can I grow? Can I have our own food grown in my backyard? That means in the space itself. This is a very important step, because the survival on the moon based on the food available, can the human comfortably live, healthcare, etc. is also being, there are about 60 experiments, of which India is planning 7 major experiments, particularly with respect to growing sprouted beans, and also
Right, sir.
fenugreek, that is our methi. So I'm confident that I don't have to depend on food periodically getting from the earth. Water is there, food is there, enough. So this is another way of looking at self-reliance to live on the space itself. So I think this is very significant, considering our Gaganyaan, and also to land on the moon and use it as a further launch pad from the moon to other planets. So this is a very ambitious step, successfully done, and I'm hoping that the next 14 days will yield very rich data with respect to all these things in the quantitative terms. Also, they have been done to some extent, but this particular mission will give enough data, not only technologically, but survival on the moon, survival on the outer space.
Right, sir.
Now,
even my next question was on that only. We will dive deep into the experiments to be done by Shubhanshu Shukla. But Dr. Raju, how do you see the success of AX4 mission influencing ISRO's future plans, especially in terms of human spaceflight capability, global partnerships, and overall mission preparedness? And how crucial is this mission in paving the way for India's own Gaganyaan program?
see, our Shubhanshu Shukla has been already earmarked to be an astronaut on Gaganyaan. So first hand itself, he gets enough exposure physically he will be able to carry on very successful mission on the Gaganyaan realm. It's a very, for him it's a very very useful input, not only for the purpose of ISRO's development, for the world at large. They can do a number of experiments, and he will conduct all these experiments along with other people. And so this is a not only India, not only for ISRO, for other people. Certainly, the technologically we have many other things like healthcare, and by, for example, using insulin, whether this insulin can be used, because diabetic people, can I broaden the participation of the scientists and engineers, or can I grow my own food, and many other things. And also one important thing I would like to bring out here is motivating the youngsters. What we saw in the morning is a huge collection of students, huge collection of excited students. I think one of the agenda points for Shubhanshu is to interact with the students on the ground, who are our future astronauts, future engineers, post space scientists. This is a very interesting thing. I think it will be done in the next 14 days. Thank you.
Definitely, it's a big moment for the country. So, Dr. Ghosh, in your view, how important is international collaboration in space exploration today, and how do partnerships like Axiom Force shape the future of global space missions, especially for emerging space powers like India?
Answer it in two ways. Okay. So first is international partnerships are important. What does it do? If you don't have a specific capability, say you don't have a specific instrument to go to the moon, somebody else has it, that helps. But at the same time, it's important to have your own capability to do the mission. As in, it's important to have the capability to pull off a moon mission. It's okay if you have instruments from somewhere else. Okay, the Axiom question is, Axiom is really not a partnership. It is like a travel agency. You're just paying this entity to access the space station. So it's a private entity, which is a go-between between NASA and then partners and Hungary, Poland, and India. So it is not really international collaboration. It is just a go-between entity. We used to have space adventures before, 10 years before.
Okay. The 4-member crew will spend 14 days aboard the ISS conducting nearly 60 scientific experiments. So for the benefit of our viewers, could you walk us through the nature of these experiments and what areas of science or technology they aim to explore?
So, I don't specifically know about these 60 experiments, but
okay.
Usually in the International Space Station, you do experiments which try to understand the effect of space and weightlessness on the human body.
Okay.
So there is muscle loss as well, calcium loss from the bones. So what is the rate of loss? How can you reduce it? How can you make it acceptable? Because this is a small journey. If you have to go to Mars, it may be a 3-year journey where astronauts have to stay in weightlessness for 3 years. Then there is a change of behavior in certain physical and biological systems. So for example, does a cancer tumor grow at the same rate in weightlessness and in the space station as it does on Earth? If it does, then can that be used to understand the process of cancer better? Can a cure be effected? And then finally, if there are some physical systems also which behave differently, so that has maybe some effect on manufacturing. There are certain things that you could do better in space than you can do on Earth under the influence of gravity. So these are the types of experiments which usually happen.
Also, ISRO has lined up a set of 7 experiments for Group Captain Shubhanshu Shukla's specific role aboard the ISS. So, how might his responsibilities and experience contribute to advancing India's long-term goals in human space flight?
That is a very tough question to answer. So partly, I think, some of the discoveries are serendipitous. So discoveries happen by accident. 2 is a lot of these experiments are long-term. So perhaps after Shubhanshu Shukla leaves the space station, it will be continued, and there's a long-term observation. So I think his contribution is going to be most in the human machine interaction fora, which means that how is he going to interact with the various machines in the in Gaganyaan, and what can he learn here that can be applied to Gaganyaan, and what feedback can he provide? I think that is going to be his major contribution.
Dr. Raju was mentioning about some experiments to be done by Shubhanshu Shukla. So, Dr. Raju, ISRO has lined up a set of 7 experiments for Shukla. So, can you put some light on this?
Yes, a few of them, for example, sprouts. For example, high proteinous sprouts of the grains. For example, we have some beans. Beans can be, if you can it grow in that kind of environment, temperature, radiation effect? All those things can be studied. You also know that there is a particular thing, fenugreek. Fenugreek is that what we call methi. Can it grow? Yes, it's likely that it can be grown. So we are mostly successfully generating our own food in space. Number one, these are with respect to the food. Third thing is there is a manufacturing of specific materials. See, suppose I have I need to give for some application, I need to have perfect sphere for some ball bearings or whatever. If I use alloys, they have different specific gravities. But when I go to microgravity, that's almost weightlessness, I will get a perfectly spherical, uniformly distributed, well-hardened element. Number one. Number two, can I manufacture in the clean environment some medical, medicines? That is another very positive and it is immediate use to the country, to the world, so that this will give us a good feedback. And one of the other things is the tardigrades. There are some small microorganisms. They survive even at negative temperature, very, very harsh environment. So that experiment is being done. Of course, ISRO is not doing that. Other country, one of the other mates, astronauts are doing it. But that will give some feedback on the survival techniques, survival possibility of even human beings in the space environment. The further thing is about, as Dr. Ghosh was already telling, the muscular. See, we had a serious worry about Sunita Williams. She could not come back for nearly 400 days. But those are all exceptional problems. However, it will be studied in quantitative terms. They say, for example, don't take too much of salt. If you take too much of salt, it will affect the bone growth. And also it will affect some of the fruit you should take, because of microgravity, there is a metabolism will not be perfect. So these are the few things for survival on the space environment. Survival not only because of the food, survival because of the radiation, survival due to the physical structure, our own physical, like muscular tissues and bone. These are all some of the questions which will get a first-hand information for our future plans, especially for Gaganyaan, or future thing. Like suppose we go to the moon and we want to have our own, at least now water is solved, to some extent, availability is confirmed. Now we should be able to grow our own food on the surface of the moon. So this is a first step for habitat in the outer space.
So, Dr. Raju, I'd like to understand from you that how might, Shubhanshu Shukla's responsibilities and experience contribute to advancing India's long-term goals in human space flight, according to you?
Yeah, according to me, he is one step further from the earlier Rakesh Sharma's visit, so that he will be able to steer, he'll be able to pilot the Dragon spacecraft interfacing with the ISS. This is an important challenge, and we'll know now very soon, after 26 hours. We have to wait for 26 hours. His own capability to connect a capsule like Dragon with the International Space Station. So tomorrow I will have our own capsule. We have done already capsule experiment like satellite recovery experiment, a capsule where 2 people can go. So if we have to connect Gaganyaan kind of mission similar to Bharatiya Space Station, we are ready with this experience, this with a good feedback for all this. So it will be more like our own indigenous development of making all these kind of challenging jobs. So I'm sure the Shubhanshu will get the first-hand experience so that it can be used very well for future, our maneuvering the satellite, even spacewalk, for example. I hope he will also be given he will get an opportunity, if not in this mission, some other mission, walking out of the space capsule and repairing if required. We know this is also, for example, Hubble telescope was repaired during one of the maneuvers. So one cannot do straight away this kind of major maneuvering, but this is a first step for Shubhanshu and India particularly.
Okay, okay. Dr. Ghosh, could you walk us through how astronauts are trained for short duration human space missions like this, and what kind of physical, technical and psychological preparation are involved? Because flying to space brings a very different kind of experience. How much does that hands-on exposure matters when preparing for such future missions?
Yeah, it's right. It's very important to note one mission. It's called Analog Ground Station, Analog Space Station, which has been established in Ladakh.
Okay.
It is nothing but a mission like this, simulation. It's a chamber. See, for example, components, electronic components. How do they survive in space? One is vacuum, another is radiation, and thermal effects on the components and the failures. But same thing is tested in a systematic way in this analog space station today, which is already in operation in the Ladakh area, because that Ladakh area simulates space like moon, soil, environment, and other requirements of space. So it's naturally we are in the experimental station. We are in the phase of experiment, getting ready more than just staying there. What are all the maneuvering we do? We have a very good station near international airport for astronaut training center, and we have many different organizations in India supporting this kind of testing. And certainly this particular preparation is important for making physically and mentally. That's important. Mentally also, one has to be away from the normal city life, normal life. So that all can be simulated by this kind of experiments in the Ladakh area. And physically, when one has to look at whether I can survive vacuum, to what extent, all these things can be, you can get a first-hand information by these ground-based trainings.
So before we wrap up, I'd like to hear closing thoughts from both my guests. Dr. Ghosh, how do you see India's position in the emerging global space race?
So before, can I just, one of the points, what are the long-term effects of this mission on India's human spaceflight program?
Definitely.
So I think a large part includes the engineering hardware development.
Okay.
So that is still the big part. You have to have these systems, the power system, all the subsystems perfect and integrated perfectly on the spacecraft. So that is by far the most important step. What Shubhanshu Shukla will learn here will contribute a little bit to that. But that is still the big picture. India needs to have this human spaceflight system which works immaculately and with a high degree of reliability. Okay, so what was your second question was about...
so how do you see...
How does this get into India into the Space Club?
Right.
So the Space Club is very select. We don't realize how select it is. There are more than 200 countries in the world, right? And less than 5 have human spaceflight capability. So I think it's a very big deal that there are so many big countries and so many rich countries who don't have the human spaceflight capability. Why will it matter? Say spaceflight became cheap and say the moon became accessible and a base was being set up there, or there was some mining happening on the moon, or there was some tourism happening on the moon. Guess which countries will have the ability to visit the moon? India will be one of them. It's huge. So we don't realize how big that is.
Right.
So I think the human spaceflight is very hard, it's very expensive, but once you develop that capability, going forward in the future, the way the space business is headed, having that capability is going to be very important.
Absolutely. So, Dr. Raju, where does, according to you, India stand today, and where do you see it heading in the next decade as spacefaring nation?
Yes, we have made a major, we have taken a major step by sending Shubhanshu to get the first-hand information. Before that, I would like to say that we have already achieved a few milestones in one of the experiments called Space Capsule Recovery Experiments,
Right.
SRE-1, which we did almost 15, nearly 20 years ago. That was the beginning. And today we are thinking of bringing, for example, Chandrayaan-4. We have to bring back the samples. Sample recovery mission is one of the major plans in the future of India's space programs. Of course, Gaganyaan is again one step ahead of this particular event. That is your Axiom 4, and Gaganyaan will certainly go through without any problem. And certainly we are planning in the next 10 years. There are series of experiments, series of missions lined up. Now, for example, we have been quite comfortable in astronomy missions and many of the communication, remote sensing missions without any question. But whenever there is HSP mission, HSP means Human in Space Program,
Okay.
which is a very, very important thing to be in line with other spacefaring nations, as mentioned by Dr. Ghosh. Yes, we are almost close to that. In other 4 countries, 3 or 4 countries who have been able to do this kind of a space station. Now, today we have been able to launch our own navigation satellites, our own remote sensing satellites. Satellite-wise, we are perfectly, I should say, comfortable and successful and confident. Space station is one step above that.
Okay.
And this is the learning phase, and we have leapfrogged into this domain of human space program through this mission, through our Shubhanshu Shukla. And I hope next 14 days, very crucial, very important experiments will come, rich data will come out, and this is one important thing for future generation. There is one program, one agenda planned for in this mission, that is Shubhanshu will interact with academia, he will interact with the students. A very good step, very important step, so that you are harvesting more and more technically skilled people, encouraging them, motivating them to be future astronauts or scientists on ground to analyze the data. All those things are lined up. It's a real good step in this connection. I'm sure 14 days are crucial. Of course, first is docking. Docking will come, number 1. That will happen because we have done SpaceX. SpaceX was one of the missions where you connect one satellite chasing the other satellite. We are connected. Now, Shubhanshu will do the same thing by connecting Dragon with ISS. One step more is coming back, launching after completing all the missions, all the experiments, coming back safely is another crucial but important thing, which certainly will be a good effort. All these experiments, all these efforts will be very supportive
Definitely,
to our own future.
Definitely, sir. It's a historic leap for India after 4 decades. And as we conclude this discussion, one thing is clear. Axiom 4 is more than just a mission. It marks a bold step forward for India, not only as a partner in international space collaboration, but as a determined and capable spacefaring nation. With that, we wrap up this edition of Perspective. A big thank you to Dr. Ghosh and Dr. Raju for sharing their insights and helping us understand the true impact of this mission. And to our viewers, thank you for watching. Stay tuned and keep watching Sansad TV.